18th, my birthday. Wow.
Wow, what's that?
Big tree got stuck up against the bridge. We was down here earlier in the morning, about 10:30 or so, and I got Tom Hoover walking across the bridge. But I'm going to take a wild guess and say Hoover wouldn't walk across the bridge now. Just a hunch. I don't think he would. There's a game this week, a tournament this weekend over there. Yeah. You can see the water's cleaning up the Hodges.
Yeah, it's Elvis.
And the trailer is surrounded by water.
Oh no, look at the boat. What is it? Yellow.
Trailer surrounded by water.
Someone's house down by Wareham.
Down by Wareham.
Like bitten down.
I wonder if something floating by here.
It's
She don't know. Nah, she don't know. I know. Deb don't know.
Bitten down. I know where bitten down.
It's Elvis's boat.
Elvis's boat. Did you catch that?
Oh, that's mean.
Did you work today?
Last night. I ain't going today.
Did you make it home?
Yes.
Last night?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, man.
Because those roads. You say you go up through Davidsville?
Yeah.
So that road's you can't go that way now. Ben's Creek down there at the bottom of the hill.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can't go through there. You go through Tower Hill, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, I never thought this was possible.
Ooh, look at that log there.
That's what I say. This is the highest it's ever been, other than the flood,
Yeah.
since I've been alive.
How about that house?
It's still there for a while. Yeah.
The water's cleaned up the Hodges gas station.
Yeah, look, that's water going across there.
Water going up right where the fire truck is.
See where the fire truck is?
Yeah.
That's water. They evacuate. There's a lower trailer court down behind there.
They left all this, but they told
They
us.
evacuated them.
Did they? Oh, that's where.
How's the
Earthquake.
road? The power plant road?
Yeah,
How's
earthquake.
Power plant road's all right.
Too bad. Can you get through there?
Oh yeah,
Allison's.
but you can't go anywhere from New Florence. Because-
VFW out there.
Yeah, you know, below the VFW in New Florence,
What
if you
about
come back,
the bridge crossing?
it's fine.
Is it?
Well, it was fine. It's higher than this one.
But it's higher now.
But the dip there beside the New Florence VFW,
Oh, it's,
that's closed.
yeah.
I came through there about 10:30.
How's mom gonna get home? From Laurel Valley. How's she gonna get home?
Yeah, Laurel Valley High School.
Yeah, she come this way.
Unless it's flooded there by the tasting.
I guess school will be canceled tomorrow.
Unless Shannon Creek's flooded. You know where the salt pile's at in New Florence? It got cold.
Just jump off the bridge and swim up. Here we are in Sword, Pennsylvania. As you can look out that way, we have massive flooding due to
This is Hoover's
King Kong pissing. He didn't even have it on.
We'll have to edit that. No, it's still on.
Yeah. Well, at least the engineers the train guys, they get a good look at all this.
Did you watch the news at noon?
I sleep.
They that green thing over there on the other side of the river, that measures the water depth. That's what it's for. It said in Sword the river will crest at 18 feet. 12 feet is flood stage. Yeah. Yeah. I told Deb there's so much runoff coming off the mountains.
Hey!
Now who's yelling? Yeah, it's gonna keep coming up. There's so much runoff coming off the mountains yet.
Well, don't think it'll freeze first.
No. No, it's running.
Think if that bridge just let loose.
It'd be like the Johnstown flooded.
Well, this home.
No, I told Deb in the flood, I think the water is probably another, I'm gonna guess maybe 8 to 10 feet higher. No, but it was well up over the bridge.
Cinemax. I'm gonna watch movies all weekend. Exit to Eden is on. Yeah. Huh? No, Megan was sick. She
picked a good day for mine.
She probably had a test.
Well, Red, what do you say?
What, you cold?
My ears are
Is this a girl?
I would give you my hat, but I don't have any hair.
I don't know whether to bring your kid down here to see this or not. Oh, I wouldn't panic. Fish jumped.
Nothing to
Little Budo's fish just jumped. Watch. See? Told you. That's them fish booty and frog catching the river. They're jumping.
Well, I got a bad arm. Hey, Gary! We caught you!
Styles' market sign floating down river. Now we're on Budo. Hit our softballs. Say if Hoover sees this tape first, he'll come get them and sell them to you. You'll be able to supply the team for this year.
When you looked into those warm, passionate...
Hardings walking down to the underpass that's all flooded. They're goofy. Deb down taking a picture of it. She's a goof, all right. Hey, Deb, he's in the car alone with the motor running.
He won't touch nothing.
He won't? I'd be afraid of him being carjacked now. There's no way Mr. Hoover's getting home tonight, cheater.
Yeah, I picked it up over the mountain anyway.
You think so?
Yeah.
Okay, how high is that bridge? I'm trying.
13.4.
Okay.
What?
And there's debris on the other side. What is that, a tree or something?
Yeah, tree must gone through there.
Good evening, everybody. First at 5:30, Mother Nature plays a dirty trick on the Allegheny region as snow melt and heavy rain combine to produce some of the worst flooding in years in some areas. Tonight, the problem is icy roads. The day started out on the mild side, then the rain began to fall, heavy at times, and the combination led to melting snow. Several feet of it left over from last week's blizzard. Now many streams and rivers are over their banks and low-lying areas have flooded. High water has closed roads throughout the region, stranding some people in their homes. Numerous evacuations have been reported too, but so far there's only one fatality to report tonight in the Northeast. A 75-year-old man in West Virginia was swept away and drowned. Tonight, no serious flooding problems to report in the city of Johnstown, which certainly is no stranger to the death and destruction high waters can bring. But that's not the case in other communities in the Allegheny region where streams and rivers have overrun their banks. For the latest on the situation in Cambria County, we go live to Evansburg to check in with Department of Emergency Services Director Dan Penitzer. Dan, thanks for joining us this evening. First off, what communities were hardest hit and what kind of damage is being reported tonight?
Andy, we took a tour of the county this afternoon, a real brief tour, and we went down through the main line area, and we saw some extensive damage, or at least high water in the Wilmore area. We understand up in the Portage area there was some extensive flooding. We went down through the Eisenhower Boulevard area and up into Elton. For the most part, it just seemed some high water well into people's yards, but we didn't see very much structural damage.
Right, that's at least some good news to report in that regard. What can you tell us about evacuations? Are people allowed to return to their homes tonight?
The evacuations through the day were really in small isolated areas, and folks that were evacuated need to rely on their own local officials to inform them when they can go back in. I know there's still some evacuations going on in the Patton area yet.
How about river and stream levels? Does the worst appear to be behind us now, or will some crest later tonight and tomorrow?
Local officials in the northern part of the county tell us that Chess Creek continues to rise yet, but all the streams through the central and southern parts of the county seem to be going down and going down rather fast.
Final question for you, Dan. A busy day at 911, but apparently not over yet. Now we're contending with the problems created by the drop in temperature and icy roadways. What's happening at this hour with that?
We held some extra people in for two concerns. We anticipated people coming home from work would find their basements flooded and begin reporting damage again, and also with the icy roads. But it's been, I think, relatively quiet, certainly compared to this morning anyway.
All right, Dan Penitzer, thanks very much for joining us tonight from the 911 Center in Evansburg. Many small towns across the Allegheny region are dealing with the destructive force of the floodwaters. At this hour, waters from the Conemaugh River are claiming more and more ground in Seward, Westmoreland County. Doug Petcash was there this afternoon. He joins us now from the newsroom. And Doug, what are people coping with down there in Seward?
Well, Andy, some residents there tell us this is the worst flooding they've seen since 1977. Now, once the water spilled over the riverbanks today, it didn't take long for it to move into town. The Conemaugh River is hundreds of yards wider than normal. The Seward ball fields are under several feet of water. Route 56 bridge is now just an island, the raging waters pounding its sides and nearly covering street signs. About 50 residents in the lowest area of the borough were told to evacuate their homes. This afternoon, they raced the rising water, packing what they could into pickup trucks and cars.
It's amazing. We were down here a half hour ago, and that road was open, and now it's closed.
What have you done?
We've moved everything. We moved our TV, our VCR, all of our stereo equipment, everything out of the house, as much clothes as we could grab.
And this is the view of the Seward generating station. What was a wide field is now a turbulent lake. Residents say it hasn't been like this since the '77 flood.
You know, we don't have the water and the rain that happened before, but it's like it's just a reminder that you just never know.
We've been evacuated from our homes, and our bottom road is completely flooded below the trailer courts, and it's rising. It's coming up higher on the riverbanks.
We all kept blowing it off this morning. Oh, it's not going to come up. It's done, but it's not done.
Routes 56 and 711 are closed in the Seward area. Kay Schlick knows this all too well. Her home is across the water. She was unable to get to it to move any of her belongings.
No, the fire company won't let me to the house at all. They turned off the power, the telephone, everything's off.
Well, we're anticipating it being here clean till sometime tomorrow.
Now, the worst may not be over in Seward. The river isn't expected to crest until shortly after midnight, and that's when some officials expect it to be at its worst. Andy?
All right, Doug, thanks for that report. There are lots of heroes to praise tonight after a number of dramatic rescues of people stranded by the high water on rooftops or in their cars. In Bedford County, emergency crews helped this man to safety after he attempted to drive from his home to higher ground. Many houses, trailers, and campers in the lowlands are now uninhabitable. The Red Cross is manning several shelters throughout Bedford County. Jen Callan will have more on flooding conditions in the Bedford area coming up tonight at 6 o'clock. And in Holsapple, Somerset County, a fire rescue crew took a boat up the town's flooded Main Street to rescue one trapped resident there. The elderly woman had refused to be evacuated earlier in the day. She was not injured, though. The entire town was evacuated early this morning by fire rescue crews going door to door. Evacuees were bused to an emergency shelter at Conemaugh Township High School. Lori Tyler will have more on their story at 6. There are weather problems throughout the Northeast created by the combination of heavy rainstorms and melting snow. To the west of us in Pittsburgh, more than an inch of rain fell before it turned to snow. Flooding caused some traffic problems, and there's water in lots of basements. Flood warnings stay in effect, but so far no major evacuations. The Ohio River is expected to crest tomorrow afternoon at 5 feet above flood level, the first time that's happened since Hurricane Agnes back in 1972. Coming up next, Steve will check the 24-hour forecast. Then later, the Cambria County DA updates the Bowden Schatz murder investigation. But first,
flooding throughout the Allegheny region. Shelters open as high waters force some area residents from their homes. And investigators are asking the public's help in finding the killer of a Summerhill woman. These stories and more are next on News Center 6.
If you're like most car buyers, you're tired of fancy gimmicks and...
News Center 6 at 6 with Marty Radovanik and Lori Tyler.
Good evening, everyone. A major weather event in our region today continues to take its toll.
Heavy rainfall that started this morning, coupled with warm temperatures that increased runoff from ice and snow, quickly swelled rivers and streams.
The result, widespread flooding that was, in some cases, life-threatening. Jen Callan spent the morning in one of the hardest-hit areas, Bedford County.
As the waters rose, thousands of frantic calls flooded the 911 dispatch center.
Company 45, manpower to the hall for possible evacuation.
We're evacuating the town of Hindman, evacuating the Defiance area. We're holding students in the schools where they're safe until we can safely get them home.
Now, the flooding has impacted almost every part of the county. As you can see behind me, several of the roads are flooded and impassable. Now, the rising waters in the Juniata River have flooded many of the area's homes in the lowlands, and several rescue attempts are underway.
We have multiple requests to get people out of mobile homes. We have people trapped on the second floor. We have, kids in the second floor garages, things like that.
The National Guard flew in to provide assistance, rescuing many people stranded on their rooftop. But first, the chopper flew to Sunnyside to save a man who had been clinging to a tree limb for hours. Another successful rescue attempt, this one near Man's Choice, where volunteers brought a man safely to shore after battling the ominous waters.
It was waist deep and pretty swift current.
We have no reported fatality yet, but we have a lot of situations that are very, very questionable.
Jennifer Callan, News Center 6, Bedford County.
And dozens of residents in Seward, Westmoreland County, have been forced from their homes by the rising waters. About 50 residents were racing the floodwaters this afternoon, trying to move as many of their belongings as possible. The Conemaugh River spilled over its banks and rose quickly on the nearby properties. Routes 56 and 711 are closed in this area. The bridge over the Conemaugh is cut off by water on both sides. The Seward ball fields are also under several feet of water, and the river may not crest until tomorrow. An evacuation center has been set up at the Seward Fire Hall.
On top of all this, the weather has changed dramatically over the course of the day. It's time now to check in with Steve, who's in the Weather Center, on how what happened and what we have to look forward to. Steve.
Well, Marty, I think maybe the best thing we can refer to is if you live near a creek, stream, or a river, just be advised there are flood warnings for just the entire area, and a lot of them are not done rising yet, even though the steadier rains are over. Let's tell you what happened, take you back in time. This is the current state of affairs. Rain to our east, that's the good news, but the cold air is moving in. That's making things very uncomfortable. But at the same token, it's also helping as we freeze a lot of this water out there. It should slow down the rising of creeks, rivers, and streams. Here's the history. At midnight last night, storm still back to our west. moving out of Indiana into Ohio. Rain just moving into the western Pennsylvania area. By 3 a.m., it's in the extreme western portions of our viewing area, back around Pittsburgh, Latrobe. But by 6 a.m., raining heavily across almost all of our area, and that lasts till about 9 a.m. or so. You can see quite a bit of heavy rain in the central part of the state. From this point on, things start to improve as far as rainfall is concerned. The problem is colder air is moving in, and there's all that snow melt going on, and this is the time of day when a lot of folks had a lot of problems. Currently, the rain is off well to our east. We can expect a drier forecast coming up, but people aren't out of the woods as of yet. A lot of these things, streams and creeks, will not.
Flooding is the worst they've ever seen.
This was the scene in Holsapple today, and this was the reason. Rising water turned the Clemahoning Dam spillway into a rushing waterfall that eventually sent the Stony Creek River over its banks. As waters were rising at 8 o'clock this morning, fire rescue teams went through Holsapple, knocking on doors and ordering residents to evacuate.
It's the worst that it's ever been here. I was on police work the night of the 77 flood, and we didn't have this. We didn't have this at all here.
It's not up over the porch yet, but I imagine the basement's full. And I said the feed mill, I see now the garage door's ripped off, and we have motors and that down there, electric motors. They're probably covered.
30 families were offered emergency shelter at Conemaugh Township High School. At 3:30 this afternoon, a fire rescue team launched a motorboat to rescue one elderly woman resident who had refused to evacuate earlier. She reportedly was not injured. There were no reports of other injuries, but widespread damage and financial loss for many families, especially those without flood insurance.
I had it, but I dropped it because we didn't think we needed it.
As temperatures plunged this afternoon, there seemed little chance residents could soon return to homes where floodwaters had likely damaged furnaces, leaving houses without heat. So it could be a couple of days until any real cleanup can begin here.
And firefighters told us the shelter at Conemaugh Township High School will be open for a couple of days if necessary.
The flooding did force many people into emergency shelters scattered all across the Allegheny region. Bob Mainhart spent some time with the residents of Wilmore who were riding out the high water in a local church hall.
The Little Conemaugh River isn't very small today. Wilmore, Portage, and Summerhill all were swallowed by the rising waters this morning. On a hillside above town, about 60 Wilmore residents made do in the St. Bartholomew's Church Hall. They were still waiting for help from the Red Cross, which is helping dozens of emergency shelters across the region. But there was food, hot coffee, and plenty of conversation.
I'm getting too old to take this beating. I mean, I can't afford it. Yeah, you can't, you know, how these people, these old people on special income, you know, they're on low income, Social Security, they can't go to the bank and borrow $15,000, $20,000 to put their house back in shape.
You don't have HUD no more to help. You get no help. You have no insurance at all now if you didn't carry flood insurance. I dropped it, so I'm out of luck.
When you were younger, 20 years ago, you dug right into it. Now you can't do that because
you don't have the income to.
And that's right, you don't have the income
to do it.
This is one of the few occasions when folks could be thankful for the return to cold, wintry weather. By mid-afternoon, water had already begun to recede. It still has a long way to go. This flood came within 1 foot of the levels reached in 1977. And now, the job of cleaning up. In Wilmore, Bob Mainhart, News Center 6.
High waters, mudslides, and collapsing roadways caused lots of problems for motorists in Blair and Huntington counties as well. In Blair County, this is what it looked like on Route 36 between Hollidaysburg and Lakewood. Lakewood was hit particularly hard. Some residents were forced from their homes by rising floodwaters. River Road, Becker Road, and Route 22 at Y Switches were all shut down, as well as many secondary roads. In Huntington County, a number of roads have been closed, including Route 26 and Route 655. State police are asking residents to use extreme caution and only go out if you absolutely have to.
Coming up on News Center 6, we're going to have more on the road conditions all throughout the region with a live report.
And the latest on the investigation into the murder of a...
It's not getting much better. Amy Bradley is standing by in Evansburg with the latest. Amy?
Marty, the rain obviously created its share of problems today, sending water over stream banks and flooding low-lying areas. But that rain has since turned to snow, and now we have a new set of problems to deal with. Joining me, Ron Samuel of PennDOT. Some of the roads today impassable because of water. What is the situation tonight?
The situation right now in most of the Cambria County area is that the water has subsided, and we only have one location now near Asheville on Route 53 that is still flooded.
Some of the water, though, turning to ice at this point, is that going to create new problems for PennDOT?
It is. It already has since the drastic change throughout the afternoon, and we're in a position now where we're back out doing winter service removal. So it's been a trying day, but we're certainly keeping up with it.
You said that in some cases there was even damage to the roadways. Some roadways will have to be repaired when this is all said and done.
Our early estimates that we can see in the Bedford County area and some of the southern Somerset County area are showing that we do have some roadway damage that will have to be addressed, yes.
And you said those are two of the hardest hit areas right now.
To the best of our estimation, they are. We know we had an awful lot of flooding in other counties, but it seems like more damage was done in those two counties.
You have any advice for drivers tonight?
We had issued an earlier warning, and we'd like to stay with that. We'd really appreciate, and I know the motorists would, if they would stay off and not have to travel the roadways throughout the night due to the high winds and the icing conditions.
Okay, and of course it gives your crews more room on the road and more room to do their jobs, and we certainly appreciate that. We'll have more on-the-road conditions coming up tonight at 11 o'clock. For now, reporting live, I'm Amy Bradley. Back to you in the studio.
Amy, thanks very much. Lori?
In other news, police investigating the murder of Beth Ann Bodenschatz are releasing very little information concerning their findings. Shannon Perrine reports on what police are now asking from the public.
It's been 1 week since Beth Ann Bodenschatz's children found their mother dead from a gunshot wound to the head in their Croyle Township home. Today, police said they want help in finding her killer. At a news conference, the county DA said he's looking for people who were driving near the house and may have seen the killer's car between 9 and 10 o'clock last Friday morning.
Specifically, we're aware of a dark-colored Jeep Cherokee or a similar type vehicle that passed that vehicle at the time in question.
Tulowitzki says that Jeep would have had to go around the suspect's vehicle because it was parked partially in the road. The person driving the Jeep is not a suspect. Police just want to get a better description of the suspect's car and license plate. And anyone who drove on New Germany Road 1 mile north of Summerhill by a sharp curve south of New Germany last Friday morning is asked to call state police.
We want the public to get involved. This was early in the morning. There was traffic on that road.
Police say they do think the killer is a man. They have several descriptions, but they're not releasing them yet. The physical evidence collected at the scene is still being processed at the State Police Lab in Greensburg. It should be available next week. Meanwhile, Croyle Township residents remain paralyzed by this murder.
Before, they never had to worry about walking out, going to get the paper, but now it's just a 180-degree turnaround, and people are really concerned.
If you have any information on the murder of Beth Ann Bodenschatz, call State Police at 814-472-8500. Shannon Perrine, News Center 6.
A fire in suburban Johnstown caused extensive damage to a home in Monaco Heights this morning. The blaze reported around 11:30 at the Robert Rossage home along Fender Lane. Flames through the roof when firefighters arrived. Cause still under investigation. 3 firefighters treated at the hospital for frostbite and hypothermia. Officials say volunteers have been on the go since 6 a.m. They were pumping out basements when that fire was reported.
The stock market surged today as blue chips and high-tech led a strong rally. The Dow Jones Industrial Average climbed more than 60 points, close to 500 million shares traded on the New York Stock Exchange.
The blizzard of the century, state of emergency.
Tonight is churning slowly and steadily eastward and leaving nothing but trouble behind. Our report tonight from NBC's Robert Hager.
Fierce driving rain and melting snow brought more misery to the east today, inundating some areas. In Marlins, West Virginia, the Greenbrier River rose 10 feet above flood stage. Hundreds had to be evacuated. In Westmoreland County, Pennsylvania, the Loyalhanna Creek overflowed, forcing widespread evacuations from the town of Ligonier. Off the North Carolina coast, a dramatic rescue in 15-foot seas. 3 people plucked from a fishing boat by a Coast Guard helicopter after the boat began sinking 2.5 miles offshore. In New York City tonight, high winds blew down part of the dome of the United Nations General Assembly building.